Welcome back, everyone. In this video, our goal is to create and assign streaming levels to each of our landscape tiles. This will instruct our landscape tiles when we want them to appear and disappear based on how far away we are from that tile. Now, this is important in order for our giant open world to run in a performant manner. That is, our frame rate doesn't take too big a knock because we're trying to render so much stuff. All right, so let's talk about layers here. Now, just actually to back things up, let's all make sure that we're on the same page. I've got my landscape base level loaded in here. I do have my levels tab open down here, and I've got every level loaded in here with the exception of one of my sub levels. That one I do not have loaded in. And again, to load these in, all you need to do is right click on it and choose load. When it is in white text, it is loaded. When it is in gray text, like this one is, it is not loaded. And we can see this all reflected here in our world composition tab, which you can access here. This level tile is not loaded and it is grayed out where the rest of these are loaded in. All right, so let's talk about layers here. All levels here in our world need to know when to be streamed in. That is, when they should be loaded and visible, and when to stream out. That is, unloaded and not visible. A layer in world composition is really nothing more than a streaming distance that you specify, name, and then assign to a level. Now, by default, all levels are assigned to a layer named uncategorized, and the streaming distance for levels with this assigned layer is 50,000 Unreal units. Now, I just mentioned that word uncategorized, and I'm talking streaming layers. Here in our world composition tab, this is where we can create streaming layers, this little plus button right here. And you can see that we've got one little tab here called uncategorized, and as I mouse over it, it says our streaming distance is 50,000. Likewise, if I hover over any of our level tiles right here, the little tooltip says that our layer name, that is our streaming layer name, is uncategorized. That's the name of the streaming layer name, and the streaming distance is 50,000. So right here in our world composition tab, this little plus button, this is where we can create streaming layers, and we're going to create a couple of them. I'm going to click this here plus button to create one, and when we do, we get a slot here for a name, and I'm going to call this first name simply 50,000. And because I'm calling it 50,000, I want the streaming distance to be 50,000, and I'm going to click create. And now we've got a new streaming layer called 50,000 that we can assign to level tiles, which we'll do in a little bit. And then I'm going to create a second one here, clicking on that plus button, and I'm going to call this one simply 75,000. And I'm going to make the streaming distance be 75,000 Unreal units and click create for that. Now with these streaming levels created, we can assign them to our various level tiles here. Now, something that should be noted is a level must be loaded in before we can assign it a layer. This one right here is not, but I'm going to assign some to these other level tiles quickly. I'm going to hold down Control and select these three on the outer periphery here, and I'm going to right click on those, and in our right click menu we can assign a layer. And for these on the far edges, we're going to assign the 75,000 layer. So now if I was to mouse over this, you can see it says our layer name is 75,000 and it shows our streaming distance is 75,000. If I try to assign a streaming layer to this guy by right clicking, I can't do it because that's not loaded in. So let's load that in. Going over to my levels tab here, I'm going to right click on that unloaded level. Right click, let's load that in, jump back over to world composition. Now I can right click on this, assign to layer, and I'm going to assign this to 75,000. Now for the rest of these, and I'm going to hold down Control and left click these middle 5. I'm going to right click on those and assign the 50,000 streaming layer. And so now if I was to mouse over these, you could see that it shows the appropriate streaming layer name as well. Now, it can be a little bit annoying here to simply have to mouse over and view the tooltip to see what the streaming layer is assigned to each of these different tiles. So there is actually a different viewing method that you can use to see what layers are assigned to all of your various tiles. And that is to simply click on one of your layer names up here. If I click on 50,000, it'll show all the tiles that have that given streaming layer assigned to it. And if I click on my 75, it's going to show all the ones that have the 75,000 streaming layer attached to it. Now, if I wanted to select both of those, because I can click one or the other, I can hold down Control, and now I've got both of them on at the same time. So little good trick to know there, and you can see right now I've got nothing assigned to uncategorized. Okay, let's see. If I wanted to delete a layer, there's no simple, straightforward way to do this. Right now, our uncategorized layer, I am not using this. How can I get rid of any layers that I'm not making use of? There's no like right-click menu here and deleting. So let's explore how we can do that. And I'm actually going to create a brand new layer here. Create a new one, and I'm just going to call this not assigned. And it's not going to matter what my streaming distance here because we're just going to demonstrate how we can get rid of this. I'm going to create that. And now what I can do is I can reopen my base level here, and any any streaming layers that are not assigned are going to automatically be deleted out. So check this out. I'm going to come under File. We're going to open up our recent levels here. I'm going to reload our landscape base. Here we go. It's going to say, do we want to save all those because we assign new streaming layers to them? Let's go ahead and save that. And now you can see in our very zoomed up world composition here that not assigned streaming layer went away. Now, this uncategorized one here is always going to be here. You can't get rid of it. But our other two streaming layers are present because we do have them assigned. Let's go back ahead and load our levels back in here by going to our Levels tab, selecting that guy, holding Shift to select all of them, and then I'm going to right-click and load these back in. And give it a moment here. And they are now loaded back in. All right, and so this is all well and good, but we need to actually jump in and play test this to ensure that our landscape level tiles are streaming in when necessary. So this is what we're going to do. In order to make our streaming a little bit more noticeable, I'm going to quickly sculpt some of our outer level tiles here. So I'm going to crank up the tool strength and my brush size here. I'll just crank that up a little bit as well. So I'm going to left click, create a tall mountain right over there. And now, before I jump in and play, I'm actually going to change my character's movement speed so that he can traverse through the level much quicker. I'm going to come under my third person BP blueprints, open up my third person character blueprint here. And inside of here, I'm going to select the character movement component, and what I want to modify here is my max walk speed. I got to have this character movement component selected. I'm just going to change this from 600 to 6,000, and that's going to make me move like the Flash. Let's quickly save that. Now I'm going to jump in and play. And check that, we are not ready to play. As you can see, there's all kinds of a jumbled mess going on. And the reason for that is because if I escape out of here and ignore that message for the time being, doesn't concern us. If we go to our levels tab, that is correct. We are seeing all of our other levels here in addition to our level tiles. We actually don't want to see any of our other levels here in our levels tab. So we're going to move all these other levels here that I'm kind of mousing over to their own separate folder. So here in the content browser, under landscape, I'm going to create a whole new folder. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call these maps tests, like that. And here in our maps folder, I'm going to select everything that is not landscape base. So everything that is not my landscape base. I'm just holding down Control and clicking. Everything that is not landscape base, I'm going to left click, drag, and move them into this map test folder. I'm going to say, do you want to move it here or copy it here? We're just going to move it here. And so now here back in our maps folder, the only thing that we should have is our landscape base and our sub levels folder. Just going to take a moment to do this. And there we go, that's what we want. And if you look over in our levels tab, you can see it is now cleaned up to only show our landscape tiles. My bad, guys. So now if I jump in and play, that is all we see, our different landscape tiles. Now, I had that mountain off in the distance. Again, we're testing streaming levels here. We don't see that giant mountain anywhere in the distance. However, if I speed this way, you see that giant mountain pop up in the background? There it is. That is showing that streaming layer at play. As I get closer to it, it pops in. As I move further away, it pops out. Now, all of these tiles right here are technically doing that, although the only ones we noticed with that was this distant tile right here, because that's the one I had the big mountain on. But guys, that is how you go about adding some streaming layers to your world. Very important if you're creating a gigantic open world. Also, and I failed to mention this in the previous videos, anytime you're making a giant open world here, you want to have your folder structure in such a way here in your content browser that in your maps folder, you got your landscape base. Remember, this is just an empty level outside of my sky sphere here in my skylight, my player start actor. And then in this folder, your sub-level of all your different level tiles. Any other test maps you got going on, move those to another folder, or when you go ahead and play, you're going to see all those other levels, which is not what you want. All right, guys, that is going to do it all for this video. We will see you in the next one.